Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Well, more than 160 people are now known to have died in Sunday's appalling attack in Baghdad. Now, this is just one of 8 different attacks that are believed to have been carried out by the Islamic State over the last month. And of course, this is the Muslim month of Ramadan. Now, Ramadan is traditionally viewed as the most spiritual, most holy month in the Islamic calendar, a time of penance and temperance. But now it's being juxtaposed with the views of these radical Islamists who are using this as a month of conquest, plunder. They say it's part of the history, Islamic history itself. The Prophet Muhammad, of course, waged his first jihad in the month of Ramadan. So they're taking this as to be the month of war. I mean, Margaret, talk to me a little bit about just some of these attacks. And people, I know we don't talk about this a lot in the West, but these are really appalling.
So these 81 bodies of the 215 that died, they were so badly charred that DNA testing is required on their bone fragments to be able to identify them. This is happening as one bomb ripped through Baghdad yesterday. Hours later, early Sunday morning, a secondary bomb in this busy market. I brought you some before and after photographs. The carnage is unbelievable. Now, we know, Leanne, that ISIS has claimed responsibility for this deadly attack. They've been claiming responsibility for a string of deadly attacks and suicide bombers, one in Saudi Arabia. The most heinous story coming out of an ISIS attack, ISIS affiliates, was in Bangladesh, aside from this Baghdad bombing, where we saw 4 ISIS affiliates storm into a restaurant. Anybody that couldn't cite a verse of the Quran, they were immediately tortured and killed. It's despicable. Now, this is happening all over the globe, including here in the United States, San Bernardino, Orlando, arguably ISIS affiliates, terrorism. But what we have is a central problem with our narrative. And I brought you a few clips of President Obama. I took this from the New York Post. And he's basically an apologist. And I'm going to play this clip for you, and it's remarkable. There are 2 words that are missing in this clip, and it's so obvious to the rest of the world, except just not him. He's the one saying it. Take a listen.
Keep everybody in their thoughts and prayers.
Say a prayer for them.
We are praying for them today for prayer.
Pray with you today. We don't yet know why this individual did what he did. None of us can know exactly what triggered this vicious attack. We've reached no definitive judgment on the precise motivations of the killer.
Never know fully what causes somebody to take the life of another. We can't fully know what leads a man to do such a thing.
But we're going to have to change our laws. It ought to lead to some sort of transformation.
And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action.
Wow. So not only is Hillary Clinton not a criminal within this Obama administration, but also radical Islamic terrorism isn't one of our most existential threats.
That's absolutely right. So he refuses to use the words radical Islam. He says that we're going to call this terror. That 30-second clip, we're going to pray. We hear him say, we don't really know why they're doing it. We can't identify the enemy. We really don't have a reason or a cause. His rationale is so baffling. Meanwhile, Islamic terrorism is being waged against the U.S. It's being waged against Western partners, against Christians, against non-radical Muslims. Anybody who dares stand up to radical Islam is beheaded, drowned, forced to be a sex slave, and yet our president refuses to identify it. And I just want to say that radical Islam, in some articles, and you and I talked about this offset, it's being identified as the #1 threat to the U.S. currently. That's it.
So how can we have the CIA director coming out and saying, expect these attacks here? It just seems like absolutely they probably already have them planned. And then we have a president who goes and plays golf because he knows he's on his way out. And his main agenda is to just continue to whitewash this threat.
You're absolutely right. So there seems to be an ulterior motive to this president for not wanting to call this what it is. And it's been written about extensively in every speech that he gives, wanting to pray for victims, pray for victims. Well, who's he praying to, Leanne? I don't understand this guy. We have a very serious threat in radical Islam, and it's waged a war. And Ramadan is considered to be a holy month. So if we're talking about radicalized Islam, they consider this a holy month for their holy war. These attacks are holy to them, and they have every right to wage them on anybody that's a non-believer to them. So we have a serious problem. You're absolutely right. He'd rather be playing golf, going to his vacation house, butting around with celebrities, doing anything that he can except identifying serious threats to this country. You brought up an excellent point. We talked about the CIA Director, John Brennan, who off the cuff said last week, he knows that ISIS is planning to attack the U.S., similar to what they did in Turkey. He just doesn't know when or where. If that's not a serious threat to the U.S., I don't know what is.
Do you think it's just more important to them to be able to get open borders, to get their globalism, to push through the one world government, that they're so willing to endanger the lives of everyone, including themselves?
That's why Trump has had such a powerful message, because they're awake. They understand that the political elites in this country, they have a very specific agenda, and it is an open border policy. It is a non-vetting process for a mass influx of refugees coming from ISIS-heavy areas, parts of Syria, and I'm all for humanitarian aid. I'm all for helping victims of tragedy. I think that we as a nation, but why does this administration think that we have a blind eye to this mass influx of people that are not being vetted? And then, of course, we have our CIA director come out and say, oh, guess what? By the way, there's going to be another attack, but we're not going to do anything to close the floodgates and properly vet people coming in the country.
Right. What are they going to do when there is a sort of massive attack like we've seen in a lot of these airports around the globe? I mean, what are they going to do at that point?
Well, what we saw the president do in the Omar Mateen attack, we saw an all-out assault on the Second Amendment, blaming people that own guns in this country, blaming Christians, blaming everything except for radical Islam. Every single thing got a blame except for that PC buzzword. We can't say that. I'm fully expecting, Leanne, I mean, the PC police are so on top of this. They're trying to criminalize, making it a form of hate speech to even call this war what it is. So I think that if we see another attack, we're going to see the same old rhetoric, because it keeps, it's cyclical. It's the same rhetoric. If you listen to his speeches over and over, the same buzzwords. It's a gun problem. It's a racist problem. It's everything except for what it is.
Right. And of course, we know decades ago, Eric Holder said that was what they were going to have to do, is say this over and over and over again, almost brainwash the people into accepting that it's a gun problem. It's not radical Islam. And we see so many people pushing back against that. And obviously there's billions of Muslims in the world. Obviously, they're not all terrorists. We get that. But we can't overlook the fact that there are people who truly believe that they are practicing the real and true Islamic faith here with committing jihad during the month of Ramadan. I mean, do we expect now that the month is over? Is this going to end until next year?
I don't think that we're going to see an end to the attempts of radical Islam to wipe us off the face of the earth, because they feel that they're engaged in a holy war with us. I think that Ramadan, they called to step up these attacks during this period. But Leanne, they're ruthless. There are no rules to this. This isn't war. It's guerrilla warfare. It's not a game of whatever we can expect, engaging in the rules of war. This is guerrilla warfare. They understand it very well. Unfortunately, it looks like our leadership doesn't.
Right. Well, and I know that WikiLeaks and some other groups are planning on attacking Huma Abedin and her ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. Mm-hmm. And don't you think if Trump, his biggest aide for 20-something years, had ties to a terrorist organization, that other countries have kicked the Muslim Brotherhood out of their country with their ties to terrorism, yet this is Clinton's closest aide. I mean, is that not a red flag? And why aren't they calling her? They would call Trump out on it.
Trump cannot get away with anything. We've seen this time and again. Hillary Clinton has been given a free pass. If Trump had hidden or deleted emails, used a private server as Secretary of State, we'd be calling for a war tribunal against him. That's an act of espionage. He would be nailed to the wall. What she's allowed to do in relation to him is astounding, what the media allows her to get away with. And just taking us back to Clinton for a second, we understand that the FBI has thoroughly gone through the email scandal, and nothing is coming of this. So, back to Homa, fellow GW grad, I don't know if Trump would have the same response, the same welcoming of the media if, in fact, he had anybody on his staff that was remotely even displaying an aggressive personality, Leanne, much less anything else.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Just
no
wow.
stone left unturned. Exactly. And so that's why it's just so frightening to me to see that they are going to just no matter what, back Hillary Clinton on every single direction, even now with the FBI director coming out and listing the many reasons why she should be thrown the book, but he's not going to do it. Margaret, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you guys for tuning in to the show tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure and hit the subscribe button, and we will see you here again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central.
People desperate for staples like milk, rice and flour stormed a supermarket warehouse in Guyana City.
If you go back to 2007, the British Ministry of Defense came out and echoed a Department of Defense report from here in the U.S. saying that beginning in the year 2016, right through 2020 to 2030, that they believe there would be massive multi-100% food price increases worldwide. And that during that global meltdown, that there would be incredible social unrest that would depopulate much of the earth. Now, in 2016, Vice magazine and other publications are reporting on a 2015 report produced by the U.S. government, the UN, and scores of foreign nations, as well as the State Department, overseen by food giant Cargill, the World Bank, and most importantly, the World Wildlife Fund. The World Wildlife Fund is a eugenics, anti-human organization set up by Prince Bernhard, who also founded the Bilderberg Group and who was a Nazi officer. In this new FEMA report, with headline, FEMA contractor predicts social unrest caused by 395% food price spikes, you learn that this is a report filed with governments and major institutions overseen by a contractor that since the 1940s has been the main advisor for the U.S. Navy Marine Corps. Now, all of this said, governments and corporations and institutions are stockpiling food and weapons. They're digging in, they're getting bunkers. Elites are fleeing to places like New Zealand en masse. We've gone from financial meltdown and huge regional wars being a possibility to being a probability to more and more becoming an inevitability. Number one, everybody needs to be able to protect themselves. Everybody needs friends and family they can rely on in crises. And everyone needs high quality storable foods and high quality water filtration systems. But we're offering the biggest wide spectrum sale ever on preparedness items, 20 to 40% at InfoWarsStore.com. On InfoWars Select, high quality storable foods, the highest quality, the lowest prices, powered by My Patriot Supply. We also sell their food as well, their full spectrum. And all of their water filtration systems across the board, from gravity-fed systems like Alexa Pure and ProPure, to shower filters, to survival straws, you name it, it's all 20 to 40% off right through July 4th at InfoWarsStore.com. I know I personally am getting prepared. The warning signs are insane. Take advantage, 20 to 40% off until early next week with the 4th of July holiday special at InfoWarsStore.com.